Welcome to a guided audio meditation to support you during times of grief and stress. This time on our planet is an intense one for everyone, and everyone is experiencing this time slightly differently. So I brought you into my garden this morning. You can probably hear the birds chirping and singing. It's a beautiful spring day here, and the sun is shining, the sky is bright blue, and the air just feels good to breathe in. So I want to invite you to take a deep, clarifying breath in through your nose, and then exhale out through your mouth. If that felt good, you can do it one more time or just return to your normal breathing. And I want you to bring your attention and your awareness to your heart space right now. I think one of the most important energies that we can carry in this life is tenderness. And it's also the most vulnerable of our emotions. Tenderness is also the emotion that we tend to resist or let go of or forget during times of stress and grief. Tenderness with ourselves, tenderness with each other. And yet in this moment, what we all need the most is tenderness, whether you're grieving or just stressed out or experiencing anxiety. And so this meditation is designed to help you experience, first of all, tenderness and allowance and forgiveness and a little bit of gentle kindness for yourself. And then I want to help you visualize and generate that energy to offer to the world at this time. And even though a lot of us are not interacting as much with each other, we are still energetically interacting with each other. In some ways, I think in even more powerful ways than we did before. We're really learning the reality of energetic work at this time in our history, because we have to rely more on our senses, our sensing of each other, than our physical ability to see or touch each other. And so for me, the first part of healing around grief or anxiety or stress or sadness, because all of those emotions, while they're very different, have very similar cures, is to really activate as much love and compassion for yourself as you can. And so I want you to place your hand over your heart. If you have a favorite crystal that you like to work with for the heart chakra, like rose quartz maybe, or Girasol quartz is an even better one for this work, or manganocalcite's really nice for this work too. But any of the tender love stones that you have, if you have it, you can hold it during this meditation, or just keep your hand over your heart. You don't need any tools for this meditation if you don't have them at your fingertips. And as you bring your hand over your heart, I want you to imagine that you're not your full adult self in this moment. I want you to imagine that you are your child self in this moment. And I want you to allow your memory to trail back to a time in your childhood where you felt really loved or really understood or really seen. Like all your needs were taken care of, and maybe just an easier time in your life. And if your mind starts to trail to more difficult times, which it can do during exercises like this, thank your conscious mind for bringing that memory to your awareness, but then try to track back to a time where you felt that unconditional love. And I want you to imagine what that little boy or little girl might have to say to you now about your experience of stress or confusion or fear or loss. That younger, purer essence of ourselves can offer us a glimpse into or a window into what our deepest level of compassion and joy feels like. And allowing yourself to sit in that heart space and think about little you, and also feeling the love that you have for that little part of you, the tenderness that thinking about your younger self cultivates within you. And imagining that you might be able to bring that tenderness to your current life, to your current circumstances. And feeling your heart swell a little bit with that sense of compassion and connection. And just as there was a time in the past where you felt everything was right with the world, everything was going to be okay, that it was good to feel joy in your heart, you can consciously bring that perspective and that lens to your current life too. And so I want you to send that message to your heart today of unconditional love for who you are, where you are, and how you're doing in this moment. Because that unconditional love that you can give to yourself ultimately gets reflected back to you from the rest of the world. And the opposite is true too. If you can't find that way to really love yourself and honor yourself, then that inability also becomes mirrored back to you in other relationships too. Because everybody's just a mirror, right? And so sensing that beauty, sensing your own divine worthiness of unconditional love. And this is a worthiness that's not dependent on who you are or what you do or anything from your past. This is just your worthiness based on your humanity, on your existence on this planet right now. And so if you're grieving, I want you to try to have in this moment as much tender compassion for yourself in that grief as you can. And so if you've been feeling like, well, I've got to try to get through this, or I have to be strong for other people, or, in this moment, all you have to do is just love where you are. Love who you are and where you are. If you're feeling stressed and anxious and uncomfortable because of the unknown or because of something that has unfolded or has transpired, instead of taking all of that energy and trying to fix it or solve it or figure it out, in this moment, simply be tenderly present to, again, where you are and who you are in this moment. You know, it's like relieving the pressure just for these few minutes. There's no pressure to solve or figure out or fix or understand or change. And coming into that awareness that everything is just as it needs to be in this moment. You are who you need to be. You are where you need to be, doing what you need to be doing in this moment. Without any alteration, without any dynamic changes. Simply being present to what is. But bringing to that presence a really conscious tenderness. And so if there's something in your heart that you've been holding on to or been feeling worried about or just unable to release or move past in some way, I want you to bring tenderness and awareness and compassion to that place and give yourself the opportunity to sit that down. Give that to Mother Earth. Surrender that to a higher power. Release it on the winds. Remembering that it isn't your job to store every event, every occurrence, every unfolding, every loss, you don't have shelves. You weren't meant to store things. And learning to let the energies move through you like smoke. I'm sitting here under my lemon tree as I record this for you. And if you've ever watched a fruit tree, it's always alive. Even now she's dropping petals of her lemon blossoms. And then when the lemons are getting too big, she just dropped one about 2 minutes ago, she releases them. This tree is 40 years old. It's not sitting here going, you know, if I was a really good tree, I would really just hold on to these lemons as long as I could. Because then no one could eat them. They would be overripe, shrivel up, and not even be a gift. So this tree knows intuitively how to release what she can't hold anymore. And that in fact, by releasing what she can't hold anymore, she's giving a gift to me of a lemon that I can take inside and juice to support my health. Or a flower that drops, that scents the garden and brings a lot of joy to my life. So what if you shift your perspective to understand that when you let go of grief and fear and anxiety, that you're actually giving a gift. And it's not just a gift to you, it's a gift to everyone in your life, because when you release energy, it doesn't stay in your body, so you stay healthier, and everybody who needs you gets to have you for longer. When you release energy, especially if it's involving the energy of another person, you also release them from the experience. Otherwise, you're sort of holding them in a little bit of an energetic bond, right? And if it isn't serving you, it probably isn't serving that other person either. So with the next inhale and exhale, what I'm going to invite you to do on the inhale is allow yourself to pull in the energy of whatever it is that you're holding on to right now in your life. And on the exhale, I really want to invite you to let it go. Imagine it's a lemon blossom dropping from my tree, or a big, round, beautiful yellow lemon that's so ripe, it's so ready, and the tree just naturally releases it. It's just a whew. Okay, so the breath is going to sound like this. It's going to be a long inhale and a really quick exhale. because you're just dropping your lemon blossom. That's all you're doing. You ready? It's the blossom drop. So let's go in for that big inhale, drawing in all that energy for whatever this is. And out it goes. And I want you to imagine that as you did that big, beautiful, quick exhale, that it, whatever that energy was, got picked up on a breeze or on the wing of a beautiful bird, and off it goes, and it's now away from you. And really try to release it today. If you feel like there's still a little edge of it that you didn't fully release, then you can do one more big and a quick, and again, let it move through. And then what we realize is when we get clearer, when we let go, when we stop holding on to things that don't belong to us, or if they do belong to you, that you're ready to release, that aren't serving you, you create spaciousness to be able to be a better, clearer form of support for others, whether that's people you know or just as a member of this human race that we're trying to, heal at this moment, because the planet really needs you. And that's why getting bogged down in so much isn't good for you, because it prevents you. It takes up all that headspace instead of being able to hold that space for a higher purpose. You weren't born to live in anxiety and grief and then transition. That's not why you're here. You're born to live, to learn, and to love. And part of love is sharing, right? And because, life is this big education, remember how school works, right? You don't stay in third grade forever. Eventually, you got to go to fourth grade. Now, you don't stay in fourth grade forever. Eventually, hopefully you go to fifth grade. So it's time for you, too, to allow things to have their natural cycle and then move forward. Integrate the wisdom of the experiences that you're having. Make sure you understand what the lessons are or what the wisdom is. And if you don't know, ask your spirit guides to show you. And then once you feel like you've integrated it, then it's time to move on so that you can graduate to the next level. And so now let's take from this place of clarity and hopefully a little more spaciousness in your spirit, let's try to do what we just did on the personal level, and let's extend that out to others. And again, this can be people in particular that you're thinking of that or what I'm going to do is just this for the planet. So I'm not necessarily focusing on a particular person right now. I'm more just focusing on creating tender compassion for the planet. So you might want to bring your hand back over your heart space, or go back to holding your crystal if you were working with the crystal. And for me, what I'm doing is pulling up really an image of our globe, of all the beautiful continents and bodies of water. Sometimes if you get overwhelmed, especially with your own life and your own concerns and your own issues, one of the fastest ways out of that is to remember how big this world is, and with all respect, how small you and I are, right? Sometimes you need to macro up so that you see how small these events and these unfoldings really are. It gets you unstuck when you do that. Then you can come back to the vision of your particular life and see it with a more accurate perspective. So picturing that globe, or those beautiful continents, or those bodies of water, or all the beautiful sentient creatures as you listen to the birds sing in my garden. And I want you to, on the inhale, again, pull in as much of that tender compassion as you can summon in your heart right now. And then on the exhale, I want to, and this can be a longer exhale, I want you to blow that breath of compassion out to the world today. It's a gift that you will be giving. So let's breathe together, that inhale, that exhale. Let's go ahead with the inhale in through the nose. And then through the mouth, the exhale. All that compassion into the world today. May all sentient beings experience joy. And may you be a part of that joy. There's a beautiful Sanskrit mantra that roughly translates to that. And, that should be the prayer that guides us through these times. May we all find joy, and may we all be a part of each other's joy, because joy alone is not as beautiful as joy shared. And you may think, well, I'm so stressed out and I'm grieving so much and that I don't know if I can find that joy. But remember some of the basic principles that guide our universe, known as the Hermetic principles or Hermetic wisdom, teach us about polarity. Where there is grief, there is joy. They are two halves of one whole. They're two edges of one spectrum. You can't really know joy completely without grief. We know things by their opposites. And so when you're on that joy-grief spectrum, it's about gently and over time edging yourself from the farthest end of the spectrum toward the other spectrum. You don't have to go all the way into joy, but you can find a neutral place between, because they're edges in the same whole. And so when you feel anger, which is a natural human emotion and not one to be suppressed. I've never met a human being who hasn't been angry. But that exists on a spectrum with tenderness and kindness and compassion. Those are the two halves of that whole through this structure, this polarity that we're talking about. And so when you find yourself in anger, notice it, right? Be with it. And then see if you can move yourself. Like, what would it look like for me to move more toward a state of compassion and grace and tenderness? And again, you don't have to go all the way to the other end of the spectrum, because people will say, well, I just want to feel my emotions. You should. Emotions are not here to be repressed. They're here to teach you something and show you something about where you are and whether you're in some kind of resonance or not, right? But then it's also about becoming aware and taking responsibility for where you are, and then seeing if you can edge yourself toward the other side. And so when you find yourself in a state of overwhelm and stress and grief, remember that there's another aspect of who you are, a younger version, a lighter version, an easier version. And that other part of you has something to teach you in that moment and show you and teach you how to balance, so that you don't ride the edges of the poles in such an extreme way. You find your way to the middle path. And you can't always be in the middle. You can't always be balanced. That's not even really a realistic expectation. But you can start to bring more conscious awareness to where you are, so that when you are grieving, you can say to yourself, I won't always be grieving. And that teaches you to work with grief in a new way. It's a temporary state, But it does teach you about yourself. It teaches you about your capacity to love. No one grieves anything that they didn't really love. Otherwise, you wouldn't be grieving. So, grief is a sign that you know how to love, right? When you're anxious, that's also a sign to you that you care, that you know how to bring really focused attention to something, that you are committed to something, or that something really means something to you. And so how else can you work that energy so it doesn't cause you, the kind of harmful physiological reactions that we have to stress? How can you work with that energy in a different way? Because the reality is, getting stressed out about something never solves it. It's not like you're going to fix something that way. Getting anxious about something doesn't solve it. And in fact, a lot of times it paralyzes people and prevents them from being able to resolve something. When you hold on to something too tightly, that's a sign that you really care, right? But we can't hold on to things too tightly. This is an impermanent world. At some point, you have to let go. And again, if you watch nature, she'll teach you how to do this. She always releases what's too heavy. She doesn't even think about it. And yet we humans walk around with like buckets full of boulders of our problems and our worries and our fears and our concerns and our anxieties, and you need to drop your blossoms. So I brought this to you with a lot of love. It felt very guided and maybe needed at this time in our collective history. I'm just like you. I struggle with the same emotions. I grieve. I experience anxiety and sadness and anger and frustration. And I think the key is just to be constantly trying to work your practice, becoming more aware, becoming a better, stronger, clearer version of yourself every day. Not with the goal of being perfect or always saying the right thing or doing the right thing or responding the right way or navigating loss the right way, as if there is a right way. There really isn't a right way. And holding a space of grace and tenderness for yourself, because that's where it begins, such that you learn what that feels like, and then you can hold that space for other people with clarity and a lot of love. Amen, aho, and so it is. Thank you for your grace and your beauty and for the many ways in which you are showing up. You didn't choose an easy time to incarnate on this planet. And it's taking a lot of grace and a lot of strength and a lot of compassion to navigate this time. And so be really gentle with yourself first. Allow yourself to be reminded of the core of who you are. And while you may not always be able to vibrate from the highest place because you're having a human experience, you will learn over time how to, especially by bringing your conscious awareness to where you are and acknowledging and participating in the process, you will learn how to move toward the middle of those poles. And then your example will also help other people too. And remember that, we all learn from each other, and we don't learn from people's perfection as much as we learn from people's imperfections, their vulnerability, their challenges. We learn from each other through all of our experiences. So Keep doing you the way you do you. And if you can do that and do you from a place of softness and tenderness and forgiveness for yourself, there's no way that you won't radiate that out into the world too and manifest more of that along your path. Be well. Sending love to your heart today. Thank you for listening. I'll see you soon.